Why do some people have to act cocky or whatever it is that...
Oh, they just got egos bigger than their talent, or egotistical without the talent. Some people have the talent and terribly...
Hollywood legend James Garner was for many the perfect American leading man. With his easygoing charm, sharp wit, and rugged good looks, he won over audiences for more than 6 decades. When you watched him play clever gambler Brett Maverick or determined PI Jim Rockford, you felt like you were watching the real deal. His characters seemed like extensions of the man himself. Honorable, relatable, and just plain decent in a world that often wasn't. He was known for his quiet strength, his absolute professionalism, and a deep-seated sense of fairness that guided his entire life. But behind that friendly smile was a man of unshakable principle who didn't tolerate fools or disrespect. For years, rumors have swirled around Hollywood about a supposed list, a tally of the actors whose massive egos and bad behavior pushed Garner to his breaking point. These stories paint a picture of epic feuds rooted in ego, professional clashes, and a battle of values that defined a generation. But is the legend of a 9-actor hate list actually true? Today, we're separating documented fact from Hollywood fiction. We'll dig into Garner's own candid memoir, The Garner Files, and explore long-standing industry lore to uncover the truth behind the 9 actors he reportedly couldn't stand. What happens when one of Hollywood's good guys gets pushed too far? Let's find out. When James Garner finally wrote his life story in 2011, he didn't hold back. His memoir, The Garner Files, gave a frank and not always flattering take on some of Hollywood's biggest names. In his own words, he confirmed 2 major feuds that he carried with him for life. These weren't just petty disagreements. They were clashes of character that went against everything Garner believed in. The set of the 1963 classic, The Great Escape, should have been a dream team of Hollywood's toughest actors. Instead, it became the breeding ground for one of the industry's most legendary rivalries, James Garner versus Steve McQueen. On the surface, the two were friends, even neighbors. But professionally, they were worlds apart, and the tension was obvious from day one. Garner, already a big star from the TV show Maverick, was a pro who believed the story came first. McQueen, on the other hand, was what Garner bluntly called a poser. In his book, Garner wrote, like Marlon Brando, he could be a pain in the ass on set. Unlike Brando, he wasn't an actor. He was a movie star, a poser who cultivated the image of a macho man. Garner felt you could always see McQueen acting, which he considered the kiss of death. That difference was the heart of the conflict. McQueen was obsessed with his own image, and his insecurity constantly threatened to disrupt the film. He would count his lines and demand rewrites if another actor had more to say. It all came to a head on The Great Escape, when McQueen threw a tantrum, furious that his character wasn't heroic enough. He threatened to quit the movie entirely. The director, John Sturges, was so fed up that he actually offered to rewrite the film to make Garner the main star. But Garner, ever the pragmatist, knew that would kill the movie. He sat down with McQueen to sort it out. He said he didn't like the part because he wasn't the hero, Garner remembered. To calm him down, the director added the now famous motorcycle stunts, beefing up McQueen's role to satisfy his ego. While it saved the film, the experience cemented Garner's view of McQueen as deeply insecure. The rivalry continued off-set. When Garner landed the lead in the racing movie Grand Prix, a role McQueen desperately wanted, the bitterness grew. Legend has it that McQueen, his neighbor, would get drunk and throw beer cans onto Garner's property. For Garner, McQueen represented an actor who cared more about image than substance, and he vowed to never work with him again. He kept that promise. If Garner's problem with McQueen was about ego, his feud with his other Great Escape co-star, Charles Bronson, was far more personal. It hit on something Garner held sacred, basic human decency. In his memoir, Garner didn't pull any punches, calling Bronson a bitter, belligerent SOB who used and abused people. Garner found Bronson to be cold and hostile on set from the start. Where McQueen's ego was a professional problem, Garner saw a meanness in Bronson that he just couldn't stomach. The animosity between them would last a lifetime. It all boiled down to one defining moment during a friendly poker game on set. A young low-paid extra managed to win a pot of about $50 from Bronson. For the extra, it was a lot of money. For Bronson, it was nothing, but his pride was wounded. According to Garner's memoir, when the game was over, Bronson tried to leave without paying the kid. Garner wasn't having it. He confronted Bronson, insisting he pay the young man what he owed. The two stood nose to nose, nearly coming to blows before Bronson angrily handed over the money. After that, Garner wrote, "Charlie went around Hollywood, swearing he'd never work with me again." Garner was perfectly fine with that. That incident was everything Garner despised. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. Mistreating someone in a position of weakness was, in Garner's eyes, the ultimate character flaw. Years later, they ended up at the same restaurant, and Garner recalled the evening as pleasant. But the tension was still there. He admitted, "I think Charlie held a grudge. I know I did." For James Garner, Charles Bronson was simply a bully, a personality type he would never forgive. While Garner was crystal clear about McQueen and Bronson, this is where the story gets a lot murkier. Hollywood lore points to other feuds, some born from the pressure cooker environment of the old studio system. Studios often manufactured rivalries to keep their stars in line and generate publicity, and for a rising star like Garner, this created friction. Clint Walker was the towering star of the Western series Cheyenne, the picture of quiet, traditional masculinity. James Garner, star of Maverick, was the opposite, a wisecracking anti-hero who charmed his way out of trouble. As two of Warner Bros. Were biggest stars, the narrative of a bitter feud between them became a persistent Hollywood legend. The story goes that Walker, who valued discipline and loyalty, saw Garner's outspoken nature as arrogant. Garner famously sued Warner Bros. Over his restrictive contract and won, a move a company man like Walker might have seen as a betrayal. Adding to the fire were rumors that Garner dismissed Walker as just a big guy with muscles, a comment that would have been a deep insult. It's been said that the typically gracious Walker held only one grudge in his career, and it was against Garner. However, the feud was more than likely a fabrication by Warner Brothers. The studio loved to pit its stars against each other to keep them from uniting over their awful contracts. In reality, both men were fighting the same exploitative system. There are even photos of a smiling Garner visiting Walker on the Cheyenne set. Garner never mentioned Walker in his memoir's critiques, making this feud feel more like studio politics than a real personal hatred. Beyond the confirmed feuds, Garner's rumored list often included men whose professional style violated his personal code of honor. He had little patience for arrogance, entitlement, or an intense nature that disrupted the harmony of a film set. Kirk Douglas was a titan of Hollywood, known for his explosive intensity and ferocious ambition. While Garner respected his talent, it's widely rumored he couldn't stand his working style. This wasn't a public feud, but a fundamental clash between two very different men. Garner believed in collaboration and keeping things relaxed on set. Douglas, on the other hand, was famously controlling and competitive, often micromanaging productions to fit his singular vision. This bulldozer approach was the total opposite of Garner's laid-back professionalism. There are no confirmed screaming matches, but insiders have long said that Garner found Douglas's personality exhausting. He saw it as another form of ego getting in the way of the work, a cardinal sin in his book. If Kirk Douglas represented an old-school intensity Garner disliked, Ryan O'Neal reportedly represented a new-school entitlement he found even more offensive. Garner had fought for everything he earned and was said to have little patience for younger stars he saw as ungrateful. According to Hollywood lore, Garner viewed O'Neal as the poster child for this behavior. He had the looks and got the breaks, but in Garner's eyes he lacked humility. The stories are mostly anecdotal, but they paint a picture of an actor whose tantrums were unbearable to a man like Garner. More importantly, Garner was a fierce defender of the crew. He believed you measured a person by how they treated those with no power. O'Neal had a reputation for being dismissive to crew members, which would have been a direct violation of Garner's deepest principles. The internet has a way of turning whispers into so-called facts. While Garner was vocal about McQueen and Bronson, online forums have expanded his hate list to include names that are pure speculation. Dennis Weaver, beloved as Chester on Gunsmoke and the star of McCloud, sometimes appears on these lists. The rumor suggests a clash of TV titans, but there is virtually zero evidence to support it. There are no interviews, no mentions in Garner's memoir, and no credible anecdotes of any conflict. This one seems to be a complete invention. This is maybe the most bizarre and unfounded rumor of them all. Werner Klemperer, famous as Colonel Klink on Hogan's Heroes, occasionally gets added to these lists. The claim is absurd. The two men worked in completely different genres, and their paths likely never crossed. It's a prime example of online sensationalism, adding a quirky name to a list for dramatic effect. Patrick McGoohan, the brilliant star of The Prisoner, is another name that pops up with no real evidence. The rumor likely stems from a simple comparison of their on-screen personas. Both were charismatic TV icons, but McGoohan was known for his intense, intellectual style, while Garner was famous for his relaxed charm. It's possible their personalities wouldn't have meshed, but there's no proof they ever had a chance to find out. This one is more complex because Garner did mention Brando in his memoir, just not in the way the rumor mill claims. Working with him on the 1957 film Sayonara, Garner called Brando perhaps the greatest actor of all time. However, he also used him as a benchmark for bad on-set behavior. When criticizing Steve McQueen, Garner said, "Like Marlon Brando, he could be a pain in the ass on set." That single line has been twisted to mean Garner hated Brando. That's not what he said. He was using Brando's well-known difficult reputation as a point of comparison. His critique was nuanced. He respected Brando's genius-level talent but acknowledged he was a handful to work with. The fact that he distinguished Brando from McQueen, calling McQueen a poser by contrast, suggests he was more willing to forgive Brando's behavior because it came with incredible talent. So, did Garner hate Marlon Brando? All evidence says, no, he simply made a frank professional assessment. These stories, from confirmed feuds to total fabrications, give us a fascinating look into the pressures and personalities of a bygone Hollywood era. What do you think? Which of these feuds surprised you the most? Do you believe the long-standing rumors, or are they just Hollywood myths? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy taking a closer look at Hollywood's hidden history, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, so the idea of a 9-actor hate list is mostly a myth. The story of the actors James Garner disliked is far more revealing of his character than it is of theirs. For a man who built a career playing the honorable hero, his frustrations were almost always rooted in a violation of his core principles: fairness, professionalism, and respect. The only two feuds he ever confirmed, with Steve McQueen and Charles Bronson, weren't born of jealousy. They were born of a deep intolerance for ego and cruelty. He couldn't stand McQueen's self-obsession because it disrespected the art of filmmaking. He despised Bronson's bullying because it targeted the powerless. These were moral objections. The other names on the supposed list are a mix of studio-fueled gossip, personality clashes, and pure fiction. The legend of a 9-actor list simplifies a complex man into a scorekeeper of grudges. The truth is, James Garner was a straight shooter in a town full of pretenders. He held himself and others to an incredibly high standard. His legacy isn't defined by who he disliked, but by the unwavering integrity that made him one of Hollywood's most beloved stars.